So some of you may be wondering, what's the point of the targeted individual program? What is the eternal outcome? Why is there a program that exists? What is the purpose behind all these individuals being targeted? Well, first of all, targeted individuals are the elite, most compatible individuals. But we're all in a program because this program is designed to weave in and out which one of us is the most elite, almost like the Hunger Games, Running Man, things like that. That being said, there can only be one of us in the end. We're all in a game. It's an intelligent game. It's a physical domain game. And we're being monitored for this purpose, I'll tell you. The strongest one of us that survives, there's going to be a few of us left after there are many of us tortured, beat down, murdered. There's been plenty that have been murdered already. However, the reason behind it is this, and I know from just the sociology aspect of groups of people, and just my intelligence from my DNA, my genetics, from having extremely elite family members, doctors, military. So, what is the purpose of it? The purpose of it is to see which one is the beast. The strongest individual will receive that title, who makes it to the end. And so, there's going to be a lot of people that are targeted individuals. You'll hear about that ended up being murdered, dead, taken out, assassinated, drugged, And so with that precept alone, you have to understand that as targeted individuals, we're all in a program. Some of us make it to a certain degree of a program to where individuals on a professional level that have been within the realm of the gang stalking community admire you to the point where they will take you under their wing because they believe you're ready to be fit to take on the next challenge, and that is then to become a name and a title and an individual. Now, the Bible in the book of Revelation, if you actually have read the Bible, which I'm going to read with you something extremely interesting and extraordinary that is going to blow your mind. It is going to rattle you to the point where if you are a TI, you're going to be concerned. You're going to be very worried. So let me go ahead and get that for you. So this is from the book of Revelation, and I'm going to go ahead and read this to you here. So, the beast of the sea. The dragon stood on the shore of the sea, and I saw a beast coming out of the sea. It had 10 horns, 7 heads, with 10 crowns on its horns, and on each head a blasphemous name. The beast I saw resembled a leopard, but had feet like those of a bear, and a mouth like that of a lion. The dragon gave the beast his power and his throne and great authority. One of the heads of the beast seemed to have a fatal wound, but the fatal wound had been healed. The whole world was filled with wonder and followed the beast. People worshipped the beast, and they also worshipped the beast and asked, "Who is like the beast? Who can wage war against it?" The beast was given a mouth to utter proud words and blasphemies, and to exercise its authority. For 42 months, it opened its mouth to blaspheme God and to slander his name and his dwelling place and those who live in heaven. It was given power to wage war against God's holy people and to conquer them, and it was given authority over every tribe, people, language, and nation. All inhabitants of the earth will worship the beast, and all whose names have not been written in the Lamb's book of life, the Lamb who is slain from the creation of the world. Whoever hears, let them hear. If anyone is to go into captivity they will go. If anyone is killed with the sword they will be killed. So let's focus on this here. The beast had a wound on his face that was healed. I was stabbed in my face. They were aiming for my eye, but they missed. It was dark out. It was a group of people. I had a girlfriend that made some poor decisions, talking smack, talking trash, and they wanted to jump her, but instead of jumping her, they jumped me instead, because I lied on her behalf, telling them that she was pregnant. Well, she wasn't, but it was for the benefit that she would not be harmed. And in the process of it, we were both led down a dark path, and there were groups of people, probably 15, 30 people, and I was jumped and I was stabbed in the face, and I actually survived and got away. And it wasn't supposed to go down like that. They were hoping to murder me that night. That was the plan, but they didn't succeed in their plan. And so with that being said, I was stabbed. Now, does that make me the beast? No. But again, this targeted individual program, the most elite individuals out there. I mean, and it specifically says they followed the beast. Well, look at what we got on Twitter. Following. YouTube. Following. Subscriptions. Facebook. Who's following you? How many followers do you have? The following. Many people will follow this individual. Let me go ahead and continue to read this for you. There's more to it. So then it continues on, verse 11. The beast of the earth. Then I saw a second beast coming out of the earth. It had 2 horns like a lamb, but it spoke like a dragon. It exercised all the authority of the first beast on his behalf, and made the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, whose fatal wound had been healed. So the first beast. And it performed great signs, even causing fire to come down from heaven. So this is the second beast, not the first one. First beast didn't cause signs to come down, and like fire and stuff like that. Power to perform on behalf of the first beast. It deceived the inhabitants of the earth. It ordered them to set up an image in honor of the beast who was wounded by the sword yet healed. So there was an honor for the first beast, okay? The second beast was given power to give breath to the image of the first beast. So somehow the breath was given to this individual, which I find very interesting. I'll tell you my story in a second. That concludes some of this. So that the image could speak and cause all who refused to worship the image to be killed. It also forced all people, great and small, rich and poor, and free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hands or their foreheads, so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark, which is the name of the beast, or the number of its name, This calls for wisdom. Let the person who has insight calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. That number is 666. So, how do we know that what 666 represents within the targeted individual community? I mean, there could be 666 of us left, and the 666 one survives. You know, even though there's much more than that number that are identified. And so the interesting thing about this is that it speaks specifically of the beast and how it's worshipped, and how the dragon, meaning Satan, gives this beast the ability to breathe. And I almost have my hand in everything. And presidency with the letter Donald Trump wrote me. My book, awards I received on it, surviving many different types of treacherous survival. That was very dangerous. And, everything's censored. Every single thing is censored when it comes to music. They have federal regulations and copyrights and pirating for certain music and albums and beats and things of that nature. But it's the fact that the federal government has a hand in the music we create as artists, which then would have to go to understand the policies that must be in place for music in the music industry and things of that nature, and contracts that people have to sign, And so, the interesting thing is, I'm going to tell you about my story, is that as a child, when I was a little boy, I almost died. First of all, I was expected to be a stillbirth, and I write about that in my book. And I was born without water. My mother had a rare birth with me, but she did not have a C-section. And I was supposed to be impaired physically, but I wasn't when I was born. And so instead I had some type of disadvantage for a while in society by being autistic and being diagnosed with autism. And then when I was three or four, my father was a Marine, was working on a waterbed, and I jumped on his back, and he still had some trauma, and his guards were up from being in the Marine Corps, and he flung me off his back, and I hit the ground, and I turned black and blue, and they rushed me to the ER, and I was in an oxygen tank for 3 or 4 days, almost a whole week. It was I think it might have been a whole week. But when I was in that tank, which very few children go through, but there's a listing of individuals that go through it, and this was in San Bernardino, California, San Bernardino Hospital, the 909, and I was in this tank, and I recovered, and I'm alive, and multiple times I was expected to die, and I had been put through some chaotic experiences and survived them, and not only survived them, but triumph with power. I survived prison, 6 years of incarceration with the Department of Corrections while having autism. Set up to be murdered a couple times. But the interesting thing here is it says that the beast would practice blasphemies and not identify as Christian but as an antichrist. And so that could not be me. I mean, I would not think I would be an antichrist or want to be. And so I think that that's one thing that makes individuals angry within the satanic community, is that a beast is usually selected by who he is and who they are, and if they don't want to go with what they want them to do, well, they have a choice to make. You either do this or you don't. And so there could very well be someone else out there in the community in the United States or around the world somewhere that has a wound that was healed, and where they're followed by a great following, and they're crowned as the beast. And I don't want to be that person, that individual, and so obviously if that's not me, that's probably a good thing. But back to the targeted individual itself in the program, they're obviously watching us for a reason, doing the things they're doing for a reason within this test programming with this MK Ultra and some other type of immoral scientific advantages, using certain techniques on us that are not allowed within the Geneva Convention. And it's because they want to see how far we'll survive. And it really dehumanizes a human being when they put us through this. And it could get to the point where spiritually you've had enough, and eventually you may break and not worship Christ. But I definitely do not want that to be me. And so, excuse me, on the basis alone of just everything, it's been a long day. To identify with such a biblical sense and what times we're living in, the perilous times we're in now, where human rights are so infringed and so preyed upon, that it's to the point where you almost wonder where we're going with everything, and everything's questionable, and it's very frightening and significant. And the interesting thing is, it talks about how the beast won't be revealed until whatever's ready to reveal the beast, but a lot of people already know. And the term beast is used a lot, actually, these days. I mean, someone could be putting up a lot of weight. Oh, he's beastie. Or someone like LeBron James, or someone could dunk a basketball and someone make him look bad. Oh my gosh, he made a beastie move. That was a beastie thing. So we're already accepting the word beast in our vocabulary. Wow, that was a beastie book. That guy could write. Or wow, that music, wow, they went beastie on that track. You know, so like the word beast and beastie is actually acceptable. And so that's what's sort of paving a way for the idealism of the word beast. You know, and so I believe that's why it was metaphored in this Bible and in the good book, because it's something that is pushed by the satanic community, the beast. And so it's like, dang, that dude won in the Octagon MMA arena. He's a beast, you know. And Floyd Mayweather, oh man, he had a beastie knockout. So like you can see that in many different examples, the word beast is used. And the beast has this authority to make people do exactly what the beast wants them to do, or what the dragon gave power to the beast to do. And it's interesting because it even speaks in that Bible, in those verses I just spoke about, how the beast will have the authority, that practices authority, and how people will be deceived and do what they want, things of that nature. And I do find it pretty interesting that when I start talking about something, that comes to life eventually over time. I was just talking about, you know, autistic people being unable to get a job and having a difficult time, how I had a difficult time and how they put me through the ringer, especially with U.S. Code 4212101. And it talks about infringing on the rights of those who have disabilities and autism. And now I just saw a commercial on TV just today, after talking about this, and I just saw this on there, about individuals who have had a very, very difficult time getting a job, and now they're talking about it to make it something that will happen for those with vocational rehab and protecting their rights to practice in employment, so they're not unemployed and things of that nature. So again, and it also speaks of it how the beast has the mouth of a lion. Well, I'm a Leo. So you look at the astrological effect of it, and the astrology and the things of the stars and the alignment and different things, and the sun, the moon, Jupiter, you know, and Mars and Venus, and the alignments of syzygy and them coming together, the ability to practice psychosis of a different realm, for it to be telepathic, where you and another person, depending on what they're thinking, you can see inside their head, you could read their thoughts, you can see the visions they see, and it's a very, very rare gift. And that gift is meant to be used with responsibility, but I actually have had that happen, where someone is thinking something and we're in the same alignment, and we're thinking, and I can actually end up talking to this person with my mind. And they look at me, they're like, what? Like, this guy just cracked in my mind. He's in my mind. And it's an energetic code. That's a gift. And a lot of people may not believe that. And then there are those that do believe that. There are those that are skeptical and criticize it. And then there are those that are optimistic about the ideology of telepathy. Being able to read someone's thoughts. And it's interesting how I see all these other targeted individuals that talk about how they have that ability. Because there's some telepathic things happening where they're putting this energy in their mind. Well, the ability to have that energy is rare, and if it's happening in such a significant way with other targeted individuals, then we must all have that in common, and which makes us a target. And so that's why they're putting it in TV, television shows, movies, things of that nature, so that way we can see exactly what is happening in our society and how society is deceived and how people easily dismiss it and say those are only in movies. That those are only in movies, but if you actually break it down, it's very interesting. When you go to a doctor, a new psychiatrist, or you go to a hospital, one of the interesting questions they ask you on a piece of paper of a listing, and you have to check them, or they ask you, do you hear voices? Do you see things that aren't there? Do you believe you can read people's thoughts? Do you believe you can see into the future? And those are actual questions they ask you. If you say no to all of them, I don't believe I can do any of this, well then you're protecting yourself. Because if you're honest about it, and you're a targeted individual, and you are honest about being able to crack in someone else's mind with the energy, well, then they're going to want to medicate you. They're going to want to put you on some type of medication. And me, I'm physically dominant. I don't take steroids. Actually, I take the opposite. I have to take medication to help me to not be so explosive with my PTSD and trauma. So I take this medication. And even though I take that medication to help me, I'm still explosive. And that's why I lift weights to channel it. You know, I'm putting up 225, getting back up in it. I had a video a couple years ago, and I don't know why I felt like taking it down. Sort of wish I wouldn't have, but I did take it down, but it's saved in the cloud of Google and YouTube anyways. But I put up 225 pounds for 10 reps, and these were real weights. And I did it all the way to 10. You know, and so that kind of energy and physical strength does not just come from the body alone. You have to have the mindset that you're going to push this with your adrenaline and your energy and your ability. And it takes so much power to do that. And to have the ability to read what other people may be thinking takes a lot of power and energy. But the way you have to harness that and focus it is by years of meditation. Years of learning how to focus your mind. It's all a mind game. Physically, there are people that you wouldn't be able to think that are extremely, extraordinarily strong people. And they look brittle, but they're extremely strong because they have learned how to tap their energy into their mind. The third eye. And that energy gives them some type of ability that very few people have or tapped into because of the fact that they focus on TV all day. They watch 8 hours of television, they go to bed instead of using those 8 hours to read, to study. They want to rest and digest their day and just enjoy a TV channel. But when you're watching something on TV, those images and those topics and those words are going into your mind. So if you're not studying or reading or wanting to learn things to keep you strong, creative, innovative, successful, powerful, intelligent, most individuals that are extremely highly educated and are attorneys are not watching TV every day like the rest of the society. And if they are, it's a documentary. Individuals that think outside of the box and protect themselves and learn laws and litigation to watch after themselves are things that you have to do to discipline yourself to break away from the rest of society and say, well, just because they're doing it doesn't mean I have to. And then you're looked at like you're weird. I had a t-shirt. I wore this shirt. and someone came up to me and they were talking to me and they were like, really nice shirt, and they were talking about some superhero, and I looked at them, I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. It's just the shirt. They're like, what do you mean it's just the shirt? You got the shirt, so you must know. And it's like, no. I have no idea who this superhero is. I just thought the shirt was cool. But only someone watching television enough would really identify, oh, that's who that superhero is. So when I looked at him and he looked at me like I was playing dumb. Like he thought I was lying to him, but I wasn't. And then I said, look, I read books, man. I study. I read. I like to stay intelligent. I focus my mind. I like to be educated. I like to work out. I like to exercise. The other day in like 95-degree heat, me and my homie ran 2.7 miles in 33 minutes, uphill and straight. And it was a long run in that kind of heat. We were exhausted. But the fact that we pushed through it to the end shows that our mentality is that we want something. We want to stay strong. We saw no one else running. The entire day, all these cars were going by. There was nobody else out there. It was basically like a deserted ghost town. Everyone else was staying cool. We were running. And it was not cloudy. The sun was out. And so that in itself takes a different mindset. And so you have to get out of a certain realm. And I think what protects me a lot is the fact that I have higher functioning autism, because society is going so towards the autistic community to help them now. But the fact that I'm one of the front runners and faces of those who received injustice helps my cause a lot. And so that in itself makes it almost unstoppable, because now since society is acknowledging disabled rights and seeing what has been happening to our community, how much money it's been costing to the federal government because of states and acting a certain way, we now have a prowess in where we stand amongst each other within the disabled community. And yeah, I'm well spoken. That does not mean I don't have autism. Believe me, I have meltdowns, but it's not me misbehaving. I do have situations where I explode. And it's the same thing as a child exploding, but when you're 6'2.5", really tall, really big and strong, it comes off very scary in the energy. And so the community gets really scared. So the more they adapt to this way of thinking, okay, this is autism, this guy actually has autism, this is not him blowing up to be some freak of nature. This is him having a meltdown. He feels unsafe. He feels uncertain. And those are things I go through. There are autistic people that can speak verbally, and there are those that can't at all. It's called a spectrum. When I was growing up, born in the late 80s, growing up all the way through the 90s, those 10 years, to the early 2000s, and even to 2008, 9, and 10, autism was not known the way it is now, and there was no spectrum. I didn't hear about this spectrum until 2014, even though I had a blanket and blatant and acknowledged diagnosis before the age of 22, which is federal law. You have to be diagnosed before the age 22 with autism, which I was when I was 3 years old in 1991 by a doctor in the state of California, and then I was re-diagnosed by a doctor in the Midwest. He was a great doctor. He was a good doctor. He was my doctor for a while as a child. And those factors don't go away. And it's harder to diagnose when you're a child. So the fact that I was just goes to show that they can see the disabilities and dynamics of social life that would impair me. But now society's accepting it. So think about those 25 years, those first 25 years of my life of not having someone accept it, understand it, acknowledge it, know how to handle it, know how to cope with it. But nowadays they do. But because of being a front runner of it, and someone who's creative and innovative and writes the very first book, I'm the very first autistic person to write about the penal system. The very first one. There are other authors that wrote about how they help the animal community with the cows and the bells, and I can't remember her name, but she's an autistic adult, and she speaks verbally too. Very verbal, just like me. And there are other authors, but when it comes to the judicial system of the legality of priority number one for those with disabilities, I am the very, very, very first to ever do it. The very first. And I created a path for other people to follow suit as a leader, as an innovator, and as an individual who's a procrastinator. And yet many people say, well, procrastinators take too long to do things. Well, you know what? As a matter of fact, I've been writing for the past 30 years of my life since I was a little boy. Communication was difficult for me. I did not know how to communicate. I didn't. I was writing to communicate better. I would journal when I was a child because at that time my communication skills were so bad. I had to go through speech therapy as a kid. I was bullied because of it. But look at how many autistic lives have changed because of innovators and procrastinators like me. See, writing is one of those skills that forms over time. It doesn't happen overnight, just like basketball. Just like those things, but some people are quicker learners and slower learners. But me, I found my talent, my passion in writing. So as one of the front runner and faces, obviously I'm going to be a targeted individual, but look at all that I've overcome. Look at the places I've been to. And as a targeted individual, the community knows where I've been to, especially gang stalkers. DC, Virginia, Baltimore, Oregon, West Coast, different cities in Oregon, the Midwest, the Black Hills, South Dakota, Kansas City, Missouri, St. Louis, Missouri, San Bernardino, California, where I was born, 909, Highland, California, Riverside, Huntington Beach, Venice Beach, Orange County. I've been to the Grand Canyon. I've lived a very successful life. I've traveled. I've met different politicians, different senators. I basically have had my hand in almost everything. I've made a lot of political changes. I've made a lot of stances, and I stood my ground, and I'm still alive. And as an individual who has brought out the truth, there are people that rather see me dead. But there are also people that admire me secretly or are inspired by my story, and they want to tell it. And, talking to a couple other people, that are in my circle right now, wanting to make a movie about my life, doing big things. And I personally feel like because of all of the trust issues I've had in my life, there are people that may be truly willing to want to help me, and I already have a suspicion. And it's not their fault, and it's not my fault, but it's the fault of the factor of society and having trust issues with different people because of what they put me through. And so even if something is really, really, really good, and your intentions are good, there's a possibility that it could be hindered, delayed, processed in many different forms and aspects. And so it's a scary thing. It's a very scary thing when someone wants to help you make big moves in your life, and you have a difficult time trusting, not because of that person, but because of other people and what they've done. And the satanic community doesn't really want to see that happen. They don't want to see this success continue to grow because they're Satanists. They want evil, pestilence, deception, dishonesty, this moral dehumanization and demoralization of society. They want socialism and capitalism to continue to grow and have no diplomatic democracy. They want to break down the three stages of Congress and the legislative, executive, and judicial branches. They want to destroy it all. They want Bureau of Prisons to answer to people with money instead of answering to the executive and legislatural laws. They want to pay for things with capitalism while mixing it with socialism. And that's actually what the Nazis did. And then it just became this socialist regime. So we got a choice as a people, we got a choice as a nation, but as targeted individuals, we are in a program monitored, watched by the deep state, set up, manipulated for their gain to control our life. But to gain control, we have to trust people, and even if people are hard to trust, we need to try to get them to understand that it's not them and it's not me, it's the situations we've been through. I got some really cool people in my life right now that I really just want to trust. But after being set up so many times to be murdered, after being put through the ringer in prison, hospitalized, institutionalized, violating my U.S. Code 4212101 of the Equal Rights 14th Amendment Disabled Act of 1990, revised 2008, it makes it very difficult. But there are people that believe in what I believe in, and that's why there's this movement happening within the autistic community. And I'm just really hoping that the people that I may have pushed away isn't that significant and they could understand and brush it off and keep working with me. My biggest fear is pushing people away that I don't want to. And that's one of those things about being a targeted individual, is if you do burn a bridge, how do you rebuild it with them? For them to say, hey, it's okay, you could travel on my bridge with me. And so that's what's difficult. And so just to the community out there, you know, if you've ever experienced that with me personally, it was nothing personal. It's based on trauma, traumatic situations I've been through. And I'm just trying to help the viewer understand and communicate with you guys that to the people that want to help me, I want your help. I want to make a movie. I want to do big things. I want to make changes. And I've done a lot already, and I agree with some of the people in my corner, and all I want is to work with you. So don't be impacted by the fact that I may have some type of trust issues, suspicions. It's nothing towards you at all. It's the fact that trust issues are very difficult for me. Breaking down my walls and letting people in is difficult. But once I get to know you and we form a relationship, it will be much easier. And that's why I got to take things slow with people. Going too fast, rushing with people too quickly can be overwhelming, especially to targeted individuals. Especially targeted individuals on a status of a playing field that set a new bar. Especially with someone who has autism that made new revelations to the United States and to people in power. And so just with that being said, I'm communicating this because I want you guys to know that I want your help, but it's going to take time and I got to take this slow. So giving me your number right away is going to really impact me. I'm going to be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Because I really don't like giving my number out like that right away. And so to the people in my corner, I want you to understand it ain't you at all. It's not you at all. Never was, never has been. I ain't mad at you. I just have difficult times trusting due to suspicions of what other people have put me through. And that's exactly what they want to do. They want to control the targeted individual to make being successful very difficult. Making it challenging for them to fulfill this destiny and purpose, because life is too short. And I agree with one of my homies in my corner. With that being said, let's work together. Let's get this done as a targeted individual community. Keep in mind that these theories I'm coming up with are not fallacies. These are very possible. Peace.